It's been a rough one tonight, Webb.
We've come to the last segment, and we saved the absolute best for last. And without further ado, let's just bring on one of the guys that we kind of all look to, Mr. Dave Despain. Welcome to In the Dirt.
I'm happy to be here finally, and I'm sorry I'm real late. I had a flat tire on my motorcycle on the Florida Turnpike in the middle of nowhere with no cell service, if you can believe that. So it's been an eventful couple hours for me. How's your show going tonight?
Well, luckily enough, we filled it quite nicely. We have more than enough dirt late model guys to get them on here. So.
Great. Well, I apologize for being late, but I managed to get a plug in the tire, and it held up to get me into town. So we're good to go now, I guess.
Now that sounds like an interesting drive home to have a flat on a motorcycle when there's only two tires to be had.
You know, I know this isn't what you wanted to talk about, but I rode motorcycles for 40 years, and I think I had one flat tire. And then I learned how to fix them, and I've had 3 in the last 5 years. So I think ignorance is bliss in that case.
Well, while we're on the subject, what are you riding for any of our motorcycle enthusiasts listening?
Well, today I'm riding the Goldwing, a Honda Goldwing. I'm going to Key West. That's about 900 miles from home, so take the big highway bike for that. But Saturday I was at the racetrack with my old R1, and I've got an old, inexpensive Ducati. You say Ducati, everybody thinks, ooh, expensive in Italian. They also make a cheap Ducati, which is the one I have. And then I got a whole garage full of other stuff. But, yeah, that's kind of my addiction.
What's really funny is we couldn't even afford the cheap Ducati, Dave.
That's what that dirt racing will do for you.
So, now, you cover all facets of motorsports on Wind Tunnel, and a lot of the motorsports are niche motorsports. I mean, you got NASCAR, you got IRL, you got F1. Those are the mainstream globally, you would say. What's it like? And Brian and I cover a niche sport. What's it like to come from a niche sport like motorcycle racing, and you being an enthusiast of that, to going into covering everything?
Well, it's a mixed bag because, I have a real appreciation for all those niche sports, as you put it very well, and there are a lot of them in the racing world. When you come from one of those, you can kind of relate. Even if you don't know anything about dirt racing, you can kind of relate because you know that, well, we're the little guys. We don't get the attention. We work just as hard as the big guys. We don't get the money. We don't get the credit. Yada, yada, yada. So there's that side of it, the flip side of it. And, I was just fortunate enough early in my television career to get to cover a lot of different kinds of racing. So I learned about a lot of different kinds of racing. And the upshot of that was that when Wind Tunnel came along and they needed somebody who knew a lot about different kinds of racing, there I was. So I fell right into it. And so part of what I thought was important was, even though we can't do them justice, try to shine a little light now and then on some of those niches and at least let people know that this is going on. It's probably going on at a racetrack somewhere close to you, so go out and have a look and support it. And also to let the participants in those niches know that, somebody cares. We don't get to do near as much of it as I would like because, as you pointed out, the audience demand is for the big stuff. But we go out of our way to try to, at least pay attention to what's going on in the other corners of the racing world.
The NASCAR, and this is just an observation from, the depths of niche sports looking up. NASCAR seems to have a broken product. Is part of their problem thinking they're the entire fabric of American motorsports?
That's a very interesting question. I think part of their problem is their attitude, or let me rephrase that. I think part of their problem has been their attitude. I see some evidence that their attitude is changing. I think they realize now after everybody else has been pointing it out to them for 5 years, that empty seats mean something. Declining television ratings mean something. And I don't know if I would go so far as to say it's a broken product, but it's certainly a product that needs a lot of work and attention, and more importantly, the audience, the consumer of that product, needs a lot of attention. And I think they're starting to get that, but it's going to take them a while to get back, however much of what they've lost they're going to get back. And I don't think we'll ever see sellouts like we did, 6 or 7 years ago. My theory about that big boom in NASCAR is that they consciously changed the sport, part of what they did to the product, from a southeastern, rural, blue-collar, country western sport to a nationwide, major market, rock and roll sport. And in the process, they picked up a whole bunch of new fans. And they sold out they built all those seats, they built all those new tracks. I can't give you the stats, but think about how much the seating capacity for NASCAR racing in America increased during that building boom. All those 100, 125, and 150,000 seat racetracks. And they're filling them up every week, so life is wonderful. The problem is two parts. One, in making that change in NASCAR, they offended a big part of their core audience, and those people have walked away. And the new people that they attracted, in my opinion, are modern consumers of entertainment. So it's the flavor of the week. At best, the flavor of the month. NASCAR was the biggest thing they'd ever seen. Couldn't get enough of it till next month, and then they would often found something else to be in love with. So you lost a big chunk of your core audience, and you lost some chunk of your new audience, and you can see the results every Sunday afternoon on the helicopter shot.
We have
So do you think that maybe there was a ceiling to the capacity? When they built I know what you're talking about, the last 10, 15 years, like Bristol Motor Speedway, for one, went through an enormous expansion. So do you think they built themselves out of their audience, so to speak?
Well, I think maybe, but bear in mind the empty seats. There's another side of the coin, and it probably has a lot to do with why they've been maybe a little slow to realize they had a problem. And that is, if you count the empty seats, it looks like a disaster. If you count the full seats and multiply by the ticket price, somebody's still making a hell of a lot of money. So, from that standpoint, they built more capacity than it turned out that they needed. Although I'll tell you what, they had 4 or 5 pretty good years there, paid for those racetracks. But yeah, they have more capacity than they need now, and I suspect more than they will ever need, because it's very difficult for me to imagine. I think they just kind of had the perfect storm there for that 3 or 4 or 5 year run, and I don't think those circumstances will ever exist again for them or any other form of racing. Motorsports in America, much as NASCAR would like to bill themselves as right up there with football, basketball, and baseball, motorsports in America is still a second-tier sport. If I flagged down 15 cars while I was stopped out there with my motorcycle and asked them, hey, what kind of racing do you like best? They'd have looked at me like I had 3 heads. And that's just the way it is, this is just not a society, and I'm talking about the mass of society now. I'm not talking about, I'm not talking about Alabama, where there's such a huge, racing community. I'm talking about take the whole of the American population. And, it's just not a big deal for them. Never has been. And we've had 100 years to convince them that this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and they just don't get it. So I'm at my advanced age, I'm beginning to get a little skeptical that they will ever figure it out. They have a fascination with things with balls that you hit and kick and throw, and I don't understand that, but that's just me.
Well, they say it only takes 1 ball to play basketball. It takes 2 balls to race, right?
That's it. That's it.
the dirt track world's a little bit of buzz. There's the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series is going to head to Eldora, which is the mecca of dirt track racing, so to speak. I'm gonna be honest with you, Dave. From down here, it's a mixed bag. I don't think that everybody's real impressed with it. What are you hearing on your end of things with some of the executive types? Are they excited? Do they think it's a new landscape for NASCAR to maybe dabble in dirt?
Well, I think everybody that I talk to is pretty realistic about what it is. I don't think anybody believes that this is the precursor of a cup race on dirt. Back to that business about the full seats. I mean, if you take the average crowd at any NASCAR race, there's no dirt track anywhere in the country that would hold those people. So I think a cup race, even a nationwide race on dirt, is very unlikely. I can't imagine that there will be more than one truck race on dirt, but I think it's something that will generate a lot of attention. I think it's a cool acknowledgement on the part of America's biggest sanctioning body of one of those niches that we talked about. I mean, I think the acknowledgement that, hey, dirt racing is a good thing, and we're not going to do it every week, but we're going to go do it once. I think that's great. I don't see a downside to it, unless it would be over expectation. Unless it would be the fact that people would look at this. Some people would look at that and say, oh, my God, NASCAR is going to have dirt races. And then those people are bound to be disappointed, I think, because the truth is NASCAR will have a dirt race. I think it'll probably succeed. I can't imagine that. I mean, when you look at what happens with the Prelude, with all the hype, and I've not been to the Prelude, so I don't know if they, the extent to which they fill the place compared to the big race, that follows. But because again, I work weekends, I'm always in Charlotte on the weekend. I don't get to the races very often, but I can't imagine that it won't get a big crowd and that it won't be a good show. And based on that, I would think it would become an annual. I would hope so, anyway.
So do you think that most of these guys that will, with the exception of Austin Dillon, he's a pretty hot shoe late model driver on dirt. Do you think that the few drivers that regularly race on the dirt are going to have a big advantage up there in the trucks?
I'd like to think so. I mean, I would hope that. Well, first of all, I think if you can dirt race, you can dirt race. My theory is that you could probably go from, a sprint car to a late model, and with, whatever amount of time to adapt to the differences between the two, a good sprint car racer could probably be a good late model racer, and conversely. And I would like to think that skill matters. And that, some Yahoo pavement guy can't just come up there and jump in a dirt truck and go out and set fast time. I'd be impressed, but I'd also be a little bit disappointed, I think, if that happened. I'd like to see the dirt guys spank the pavement guys pretty good and give them a driving lesson. That would be my hope for how it would turn out.
Well, we are up against the bottom of the hour, Brian. I don't know how much. I think we only got maybe about 90 seconds. So, Dave, before I let you get out of here, I want to thank you very, very much. You had a rough day with the flat tire. Appreciate you calling in and spending some time with us.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. I'm sorry the circumstances kind of fouled up your schedule, but it was a pleasure to talk to you nonetheless.
Hey, we're not semi-pro. We're below that, and we just kept going. Live radio, we just kept going.
Believe me, I've been in that box a number of times in my broadcasting career, and it's when you prove what you're made of.
I got one more quick question though.
Oh, all right, we got it.
As broadcasters, Webb, because technically we are broadcasters. I hear different remarks from fans of racing, that they want to hear more about the characters, about, I don't know, what it seems like more people are drawn to drama. Do you think they're more drawn to that, or do you think they want to hear more? I think the technical side of racing is just as important as the story that's played out. I think that gives the fans more knowledge of what's going on. But how important is that as a broadcaster to
that's an old argument that the first time I ran into that argument, it was when I did a race for a broadcast network. And keep in mind that this was close to 40 years ago when cable was a new thing. And the argument was, if you're on cable, a guy's paying to get to see the race. You're talking to the diehard audience. You're talking to the hardcore guy. He wants nuts and bolts. He wants to know technical stuff. You know, he's a serious enthusiast. Then you go over to ABC, and their attitude is, we're talking to Mr. and Mrs. America who don't know they don't know a race car from a bowling ball. You got to educate them and make it real simple. And you got to give them a reason to care about these drivers. You got to give them human interest. You got to give them drama. So, I think both of those are accurate. I mean, I think that the diehard enthusiast is never going to love a broadcast aimed at the general population, but I think you're never going to get the general population educated about racing if all you give them is, you know, tight and loose and quarter pound on the rear and all that. I mean, they don't understand that. So that's a real difficult balance. And you guys are lucky in the regard that you know who your audience is and you know what they want. You don't have to satisfy both masters, and that's a nice place to be.
Dave, we've gone into overtimes just like you guys do on wind tunnel. So just bear with us 1 second. Now, that being said, that what you just said. We entertain sometimes. We bring guests on from all walks of life. We've had people on from South Africa, from Australia in dirt racing. But sometimes we entertain. Sometimes we do a skit called Rumor Mill Theater. And we take stuff from the headlines in dirt track racing and put it. Is that a necessary evil too when doing programs like this?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I guess first of all, you defined it as evil, and I guess that means that by your definition, it's something you're feeling like you have to do or need to do to maybe expand the audience. I'm kind of really on the fence on that because I'm not very good with the technical stuff. I'm not very mechanical. I don't understand a lot of it, and so while it fascinates me, it's also pretty easy for me to get lost in a hurry and start losing interest. I love people stories. I love, the thing I love about racers is not that they know how many rounds of wedge the thing needs.
That's right.
But that they are just crazy in a very good way. I'm my kind of crazy. They don't think like normal people, and I mean that as an absolute compliment. They don't behave like normal people. They're special. And capturing that specialness or having the opportunity, finding a way to reveal that specialness to the rest of the world, I think is a fun thing to do. Knowing that 9 out of 10 of those people to whom you reveal this fascinating personality are going to look at him and go, he's crazy, and not in a good way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we had
one guy that you get, that one person that you get, to me, makes it worth it.
We had Jack Hewitt and Charlie Schwartz on the same program.
Well, that's all we need to say. That sums it up right there. And the people who listen to that show either get it or they don't. My guess is those two are never going to have a mass following because most people would just look at them and scratch their heads.
Well, anybody that would, and one of his comments was, he was asked, finally making the Indy 500, and I'm from Indianapolis, by the way, so that's near and dear to my heart. He was asked what it's like to make the field of 33, and he had bumped Lynn St. James, and he said, I kind of feel bad making it. And they're like, well, Jack, why? And he goes, well, I bumped Lynn, so now I'm the only person in the field with a mustache. And I was like, oh, my God, Jack. Oh, my God.
The words of Jack Hewitt.
So, like you said, if you can catch that one special person in their story, then, like you said, you've done it. So, Dave, with that, we've made you laugh. We've made your day better after a long drive and a flat tire on the Goldwing.
You have made my day much better. I'm glad we got this. I'm glad we were able to do it. I'm glad I just didn't bag you, because that would have really been frustrating. So I'm glad it worked out. Hi to all the fans, and thanks for the opportunity.
Now, me and Brian we're more than available to be on Wind Tunnel. Just saying.
Okay, man. I'll keep that in mind.
I'm going to be making a run for that truck race at Eldora too.
Attaboy.
Thanks, it is almost in the works, just for the record.
Oh, that's cool. That's very cool. Well, you'll be one of those guys who give those pavement boys a lesson.
That's it. Well, here's the other thing. You're familiar with Mr. Darrell Lanigan, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
World Outlaws champion. What do you think his chances are? I just got that as a question from a listener.
In the truck race?
Yes.
I think he'd probably do pretty well. Again, it'll depend on how much time he gets to try to acclimate, because it's going to be different. I mean, it's not going to be a late model with a tailgate. It's going to be, my guess, I don't know, maybe they've made some announcement that I've missed, but it's going to be a pavement truck with a little bit of, modification to make it halfway work on dirt. So, again, is that going to favor the dirt racers? I would think it might. I mean, they're going to climb in it and go, God, this thing handles like a pig, but, at least I'm used to having it sideways and having my foot in it. So, where the pavement guys are going to be maybe more intimidated by an evil handling truck. And then maybe I've got it all wrong. I mean, maybe they're going to make them great, but my guess is not. And that, I would think, would work to the advantage of a guy like Lanigan or any other, dirt racer of his caliber. There aren't a lot of them. He's pretty good.
Well, all right, Dave, we appreciate your time. Catch you on, still going to be on Sundays coming up in 2013.
Cool, man. Thanks. Appreciate it. See you.
All right.